Would you tell me your favorite habit that has supported your ability to be happy and to be abundant?
I think the one that I would lean into right now is we have one of the foundations that we teach in your Year of Miracles is choose where you put your energy and attention. What we put our attention on grows stronger in our life. When I put my attention on what is working in my life rather than what isn't working, and both are always there, when I put my attention on what is working, I get more of that.
I would say mine is trust in the universe. It's that ultimate of letting go and letting the flow happen. And when you're in that state, you trust that it's going to work out. You trust that it's there. And that's when you just sit there and you go, I can't do anything about this. I'm going to let this come through, and I trust in the universe, and I'm going to let this flow. I'm trying to control it all.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show. I really hope you guys love this interview that is coming your way. I feel so inspired by it. So I had two women who I have so much respect for. Marci Shimoff, and she loves to tell you it's Shimoff because she's not shy, and Lisa Garr. And you might know Marci's work. She's the #1 New York Times bestselling author. And really, she is a world-renowned transformational teacher and an expert on happiness, success, and unconditional love. So I was first turned on to her work for her book called Happy for No Reason. And then she has Love for No Reason and 6 titles in the phenomenally successful Chicken Soup for the Women's Soul series. But I was turned on to her for the Happy for No Reason because I've always been absolutely obsessed with happiness. So you probably, when you listen to Marci, you're like, oh yeah, I've had her before. And Lisa is someone who I met because I was on her radio show like a couple of years ago. And she's also a best-selling author, Becoming Aware: How to Repattern Your Brain and Revitalize Your Life. And Lisa's someone who had a brain injury and had to come back from, like, literally relearn how to talk. Anyway, about a year and a half ago, they invited me to be a speaker in their Year of Miracle. And it's a group. It's basically like a year-long experience. And I absolutely loved my experience in that group. So I'm going to be going back again this year. And I just wanted to have them on and just talk about what they're doing, what inspires them to keep doing what they're doing, to tell us a little bit about the Year of Miracles. They're also giving us this beautiful, it's an ebook, which you guys can get at terricole.com/miracles, all about the habits, the healthy habits that you can employ in your life today to sort of get out of your own way when it comes to creating more abundance and more happiness. So I hope that you enjoy my interview with Marci Shimoff and Lisa Garr as much as I enjoyed interviewing them. I'm super excited to welcome to the Terri Cole Show Lisa Garr and Marci Shimoff. Am I saying it right?
Shimoff.
Shimoff. I don't
Think
know
of
why.
shy, which I'm not. Think of shy.
I love it. Marci, shy. She's not. Moff.
All right.
I welcome my lady loves. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. We've been talking offline. We've been talking not while we're interviewing about all the things, but what I look to both of you for is inspiration. I mean, you have taught me with the work that you've put out in the world. I was talking about this at the top of the show. Besides the books and the radio show and all the stuff that you guys do, I look to you for like a bright spot of sunlight when I need inspiration in hard times. So let's talk a little bit about like what brought both of you to where you are and your collaboration.
I was born depressed. I write about happiness and miracles, but I'm the least likely person to be speaking about it because I came out of the womb with existential angst. I was an unhappy kid. I had a great family, so there wasn't an outer reason for it, but I just felt there was a dark cloud around me. And my solution to it when I was young was sugar. I became a sugar addict because I felt good temporarily, but in the long run, of course, that didn't work. By the time I was in high school, I was about 30 pounds overweight, 35. So when I was in my early 20s, I decided I want to be happy. I set 5 goals for myself, which a lot of people do. And I figured once I get those goals, then I'll be happy. And I'm just going to quickly share them because I think people will be able to relate. I wanted to have a successful career helping people. a wonderful husband or life partner, fabulous friends, a comfortable home, and the equivalent of Halle Berry's body. Well, I got 4 out of the 5. I do not have Halle Berry's body, but I have a body for which I'm very healthy. I'm grateful for. And I worked really hard to get all my ducks in a row. And Terry, I had a turning point moment. It was in 1998. I had 3 books on the top 5 of the New York Times bestseller list in the same week. I had just given a speech to 8,000 people, and I had autographed 5,432 books. The client had a massage therapist there to help me, keep on signing. And on one hand, I felt like an author rock star. But after I autographed that last book, I went up to my hotel room, which was the penthouse suite my client had gotten for me. I walked over to these huge windows overlooking Lake Michigan. I was in Chicago. I took in that amazing view on top of the world. And I turned around and I crashed onto the bed, fell onto the bed, burst into tears, deep, deep tears, because I realized I had had everything I thought I needed in life to be happy. And I still had that emptiness in my heart. It did not work. And that was the end of the game. I could no longer fool myself into thinking just the next thing would work. So I dove deeply into the study of happiness. I started researching happiness and interviewing happy people, and I started doing what they were doing, and it worked. I went from about a D plus in happiness to an A. I still am a work in progress, but it really worked, and I started sharing this with people. And about 10 years ago, I realized that not only was there a formula for happiness, there's actually a formula for living a miraculous life. And that's why I do the work I do now is I show people how to wake up and feel like they are in what we call the miracle zone, living a miraculous life.
That's where I came into Marci's life is she and I met, and I joined her in the Year of Miracles program about 3 years ago, but we've known each other for about 15 years. And I have watched this incredible community of people in this program create phenomenal experiences in their life. And it's through this, power of intention through the Miracles program, which we'll talk about in a sec. But the reason that I originally met Marci was because I, too, high functioning female out there, killing it, slaying those dragons. And I wound up with a severe brain injury for an accident that I had, a bike accident that I had. And I damaged my brain so badly, I couldn't think my way or figure my way out of my business that I was running, the relationship that I was in. It was at least a year and a half of brain rebuilding that basically rebuilt my entire path. I actually lost my voice. I lost my ability to communicate because the brain synapse got broken. And after that year and a half of rehab, which was so incredible to learn the possibilities around the human brain and what's possible with humanity in general to be able to rebuild itself and revitalize itself. I went through, yes, training programming, but I also learned the resilience and the strength of the human spirit to be able to rebuild. And I now get to use my voice for good. I host, I've hosted radio shows for 20 years and a podcast and on Gaia TV and Free Speech TV and every other, broadcasting outlet because I absolutely love in the possibilities of humanity, of the possible human, like Jean Houston talks about. And so I bring on incredible people like Marci and you to speak about how your journey transformed you so that other people could do the same. And it's a really practical show. It's not just, hey, they did it, you can. It's here's how, and this is how you can. And I'm committed to that level of growth always.
What's amazing about both of your stories, right, is that if we go back to Marci's, where the "I'll be happy when" phenomenon, there's something that is so incredibly common. And I think in my own life, when I was a talent agent, working with supermodels and doing a bunch of things, I thought I was on the right path. And then I kept saying, but when I'm running an agency, then I'm going to feel the way I want to feel, or when I have that next famous client or whatever it was. And then when I got to those things, I feel like, Marci, I was like you, flopping myself on the bed and crying, because the realization that those things were not going to ever create the feeling that I wanted. And that was also a pivot point in my life. And I feel like a lot of us have had health crises, Lisa, as you shared
Mhm.
with your brain injury, and I was diagnosed with cancer in my early 30s. And it's something that it's a wake up call in a way that is undeniable. And because being high functioning, sort of type A women, we just feel like I can do it. Like I can muscle through this. I just need to get through this. I just need to get to the next book, the next, whatever the thing is. And when you have a health crisis, Lisa, as you shared, the universe is like, you know what? You're never getting to it, right? You keep saying you're kind of going to do it, but you keep doing more work and not the work that I feel like you should be doing. So in a
Mhm.
way, I was grateful for, although, as my friend Chris Carr would say, I'm not going to call it a gift because I wouldn't give it to you, my cancer experience.
So true.
But it was a profoundly transformative moment in life where you're like, wow, what if this experience, and maybe you felt this way, Lise, but what if this experience were to shorten my time on earth? Can
Right.
I say I'm
Absolutely.
living my best life? Am I inspiring others? Am I being of service in the way that I want to be and that I know that I could be? So both of you are now committed to helping people sort of live a life filled with miracles.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
Yes. And
let's talk about the miracle zone a little bit.
Marcy's going to definitely talk about that, but it's also where you mentioned to me, it's relationships get compromised. Like you might be doing all this stuff, but where are your deep relationships with yourself? Where do you have that ability to give time to yourself and a community of people? And so, yeah, Marcy was going to talk about that.
Yeah, when I did my research on happiness, Terry, there's so much research on happiness, and to me, science has cracked the happiness code. We know what it takes for people to be happier. I think that should be headline news. I think this should be taught in all the schools. We each have a happiness set point, and it's like a thermostat setting. And no matter what happens to us, whether it's good or bad, we will hover around our thermostat setting unless we consciously change it. So all we need to do to be happier is to raise our happiness set point. Well, what I've found is in working with happiness is certainly that happier people get, the more open they are to what I call a miraculous life. More miracles start to flow in. And let me just share what I mean by living a miraculous life or living in the miracle zone. The dictionary definition of miracle is a surprise and welcome event that can't be explained by science and that's often attributed to divine grace.
Mm.
So we can't actually create miracles. They are a gift of the universe. What we can do is we can create the conditions for more miracles to flow in our lives. And that is what we talk about. That's what we've found the actual things that people can do, a formula for putting yourself in this miracle zone where whatever it is that you are most wanting in your life, whether it's money or a relationship or health or any joy, just inner joy, love, that those things become much more possible because you are magnetic for them. And that's what this is about.
Yes. And that specifically, what Marcy's talking about, those conditions that you create for yourself, is very much a practice. It's a practice where in the miracles program there's a set amount of themes that go along with every single month, and it's focusing on your own self-care, it's focusing on your relationships with others and yourself, it's focusing on your finances, it's focusing on your spirituality and your ability to connect with the divine. If you don't give yourself the time to do something like that and create a daily practice around it, what happens? Life gets in the way. People tug at
Mhm.
you. You get to that to-do list, and then that to-do list gets longer and rotates, and it gets shoved off. And if you don't have a time and space for that to happen, for that to really pour into you, then it gets overridden, especially when you're a busy female being tugged at by all sorts of different things. That's what I specifically love. I know that Terri, you have a gift for people on your website, which is terricole.com/miracles for all those boundaries OGs. There is an ebook on there that can basically, Marci, you can tell us a little bit more about it, but
Yeah, it's called The Biggest Mistakes That Keep You from Living in the Miracle Zone, because
right.
what we've actually found is that there is this flow of life. There are miracles all around us all the time. And yet what I find is that people block them. There's certain specific things that people are doing to block their miracles from coming. And so this is actually the 4 biggest mistakes that people make that block their miracles. I'm happy to share one of them if you'd like to.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I would say one of the biggest ones that I have found, and particularly with women, the way that we block our miracles is that we are not open to receiving. And we don't receive because we don't feel worthy. Terri, this is totally all the work, the brilliant work that you do around worthiness and boundaries and self-love and all of that. So there are miracles just sitting right there, waiting to flow into you, but we're not receiving them because we don't have enough self-love. And I distinguish self-love from self-esteem because I think it's important. Self-esteem is the feeling of I like myself because it's conditional. Nothing wrong with it, of course, except that it's conditional. So, if I like myself because I'm a good person or because I look a certain way, well, if you lose those looks, then how are you going to feel about yourself? It's not steady. Self-love is I love myself unconditionally. Doesn't matter. It's not based on anything. And the more we have self-love, the more we feel worthy of opening up to the good. And I'll tell you a very quick story about this in my own life. Many years ago, I think it was in the mid 90s, I was taking a workshop with a mentor of mine who's now a dear friend of Lisa's and mine, Marianne Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
And Marianne said, if you make a lot of money and you don't feel worthy of receiving that, you will lose it. And I thought to myself, that's ridiculous. There is no way that if I made a lot of money that I would lose it. Well, a couple of years later, sure enough, my first books came out. I started making way more money than I was used to, and I started losing the money. And I remembered, fortunately, soon enough what Marianne had said, and I worked on my own consciousness, raising my own consciousness and openness to feel worthy of receiving that. And so I was able to turn that around. But that is really the crux of it. It's whatever it is you want. If your consciousness is not high enough to feel like you're worthy of that, you'll push it away. So it's really important that we open up to that level of worthiness and self-love.
Marci, I think that what you had said about the receiving, I see this all the time in my therapy practice and my mastermind, my groups, where there's a conditioned response. So this is like habituated behavior. And it's not everyone, except it really is the women in particular who are attracted to my work. And I'm sure it's because they're resonating with me, right? And how I am, how I've been in the world. And the shift from not allowing, because it's a receiving thing, yes, but it's also an allowing thing, because in my 20s, I was so conditioned to be hyper independent. I didn't want to owe anybody squat. That was for sure.
Or
But,
rely on
what are the
anyone.
conditions? Oh, no relying. But partly because I felt like I needed to be on my own sort of at a young age with what was going on in my parents' relationship, and that it was a little bit like if it was going to get done, I was the one who was going to do it. So even when I had attracted, let's say, partners who were capable, I had this uncanny ability to make a perfectly normally functioning human become an underfunctioner, because I was so quick to be like, I got it, I'm good, I got it. And I remember my mother saying to me when I was first dating my husband, which we've been together 25 years, and I remember saying, it doesn't make sense. He wants to drive from New Jersey through the Lincoln Tunnel, pick me up on the Upper West Side just to drive me back because I'm going to his house. That is not logical. I can just hop on the train. I can be there in 20 minutes. And my mother was like, Tara, why do you keep trying to block the nice things? This guy wants to come and scoop you up, as he says. How about you just let him scoop you up?
Mhm.
He's not worried about being efficient. He wants to make your life easier. Why aren't you allowing him to do it? And that really impacted me. And I started just saying, great, thank you. Yes, please do come scoop me up. And I mean, that was 25 years ago. And obviously he's been scooping me up ever since. But
Mhm.
that was a major shift in connectedness, because at least what you had said a little bit before is when we are, as my friend, I think you guys know David G. Do you know David G, the
Mhm.
meditation
Roughly,
teacher
yeah,
with white hair?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Relationship teacher,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Anyway, he says, you wake up, burn through the day, like drop and get up and do it all over again. And at least what you were saying before is what happens to the depth of our relationships,
Right.
not just with others, though, but with ourselves when we don't do, Marci, with what you were saying before, find this way to create the internal conditions to allow our abundance. And you're talking about the internal conditions for sort of allowing miracles. And I do see it as that, but I really see it as it's right there. And somehow we're blocking it from happening.
Absolutely. Terry, I just have to thank you so much for your perspective and your teaching, because it's so in alignment with what we speak about in your Year of Miracles. And in fact, you were a brilliant and amazing guest we had with us in this last year, and really fantastic. And it truly is about shifting the internal state to welcome in a totally new life. And I mean, the kinds of things that we've seen, as Lisa was
Yeah, tell,
referring
tell
to,
me.
that people, yeah, Lisa's got some great examples.
Yes, I mean the experiences that people have created. There's one particular woman, Sandy Clark Martin, who you know well, and had she'd been in the healthcare field for 49 and a half years. This is a perfect example of what you're talking about. 49 and a half years until she got cancer. And she didn't do the 50th anniversary because she had cancer. So what she did is she took that half a year when she was going towards her 50th anniversary, and she took care of herself finally. In the healthcare field, they don't
Mm.
have that messaging to take care of themselves. So now what Sandy's done is she's created an entire, because she's been in the Miracles program since, Marci, since the beginning with
Mhm.
you. She has learned self-care, and she's created a whole program called the CARES program. And that each, an acronym, CARES, has a different idea, method behind it, on how, behind self-care. And she teaches self-care to healthcare workers that need it more than anyone. But she knows that from her personal experience of not having that herself. I just talked to her, and she's running 5K on New Year's Eve
Oh my gosh.
for fun,
Go, Sandy.
and I go, Sandy, right? And she's like, what, 70? I love this lady because she is committed to herself. And that's what happens when you create a regular routine of allowing, as you're saying, and a regular community support. I can't tell you how that biggest difference in the world around community is when you gather with other people that are in the same energy and that same flow of taking care of themselves. And of course, life happens and undulations happen. But when you have that consistency of a like minded community around you that's committed to your best and highest good, and you're committed to theirs, it creates that beautiful altruistic effect. And that's what those conditions for miracles in your life are. That's what Marci's talking about.
That's a beautiful story about Sandy, because when you think about it, if we don't get out of our own way to a degree, like Sandy's story is perfect in that she now is paying it forward. Because so much of the time when we are not allowing ourselves to receive, Deepak had said many years ago, I was studying with him doing something, And he was talking about, if you go through something that's painful and you learn something that will lessen the suffering of others,
Mm.
almost like it is your karmic obligation
Mhm.
Yes.
to share that. And
Mhm.
he was funny and was like, consider it, karma in your karma bank. He said something like that. But I knew what he meant. And I was raised in a similar way of, if you can help, according to my mother, then you should, then you must, deacon in her
Mhm.
Methodist church. Like, this is just a way of being in the world. But what I notice is that until I was in a place of allowing that exchange of energy, of the receiving, to be able to give more, right? There was this shift when I was creating the conditions that you guys are talking about, being in that miracle zone, where suddenly I could really do what I considered my dharma was, which was to help
Mhm.
more people. It was one thing to have a private practice and see 1 million people a week and do all of that as a therapist after switching careers, but moving into, how do I really do this in a way where I reach the person who has no hope, who has no money? If I write a book and I get it in libraries, even someone with no money can have these techniques that can help
Mhm.
them
Mhm.
change their life and allow their own abundance to flow. If I were still saying, I got it, I got it, I got it, every second of the day, if I was still not letting cab drivers pick up my huge bag and put it in the trunk, they'd open their door. I'd be like, don't worry about it. Like, why? Why am I not letting the cab driver do what is his actual job to do? I'm going to overtip him anyway, whether he puts the bag in the back or not. So I love that story about Sandy, because we see how amplified the goodness of what she finally learned. But here's the thing, there would be no Sandy and no CARES program if she hadn't learned that herself. And so many of us have had those.
Yeah.
Marci, the throwing yourself on the bed, the brain injury, the cancer that I was sharing. We have those moments where we're really on our knees. We can't stay on autopilot, because
Right.
autopilot
Right.
does not create the miracle zone. Agreed?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And the thing about those times, blessings they are, what I've seen is that there are a few things that people need to really do to get out of those cycles on a more permanent basis to be able to use them. And one is to surround themselves with the right people. And the other is to actually learn the habits. There's the only difference, according to the research, between happy people and everybody else is that they have different habits. So the thing to do is you learn the habits of happy people. You learn the habits of people who live in the miracle zone, that have that kind of effortless flow going in their life, where things are working, where the wind is at their back. So what are those habits that you learn? And then also make sure to surround yourself with community so that you can keep on going, because we're social beings. We need each other in that way.
Would you tell me, each one of you, your favorite habit of what you were just talking about in your own life that has supported your ability to be happy and to be abundant?
Mm.
Well, it's always a hard one because, of course, there are a lot of
Uh-huh.
habits. I think the one that I would lean into right now is, we have one of the foundations that we teach in your Year of Miracles, is choose where you put your energy and attention. It's, we've all heard this before, but wherever our what we put our attention on grows stronger in our life. And I just have noticed so much that when I put my attention on what is working in my life rather than what isn't working, and both are always there, when I put my attention on what is working, I get more of that. And that's
Mhm.
not just for my own life, that's for my relationships. When I'm, with my husband, I can pretty easily find the things that he could do better, right?
Yeah.
But when I do that, it's not so great. When I put
Mhm.
my attention on what I appreciate about him, and we play the appreciation game every day. Every morning we wake up and spend a few minutes appreciating each other, and every night before we go to sleep, then all those things that weren't working seem to work so much better just
Yeah.
through appreciation. So I'd say that's my number one go-to, what I focus on.
I would
Love
I
it.
would say mine is trust in the universe. It's that
Mm.
ultimate of letting go and letting the flow happen. And when
Mhm.
you're in that state, you trust that it's going to work out. You trust that it's there. And it's so funny because prior to this, I was doing my mastermind call, and I had gifted the ladies a numerology reading as my year end kind of gift to everyone. And I was all set for this. And I had this brilliant numerologist come on, Glynis McCants, who's so good at what she does. And her internet didn't work. And I'm like, oh, really? I would like set this whole thing up and I was so excited and I announced it and I got everybody's birth dates and she couldn't get on. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, all right, I got to just trust that this is all going to flow and it's all going to work out. And so what we wound up creating was, as Glynis was going to try to get on her phone, to try to fix her internet, try to do all this thing, we wound up having this appreciation circle within our group that was so beautiful that when Glynis finally figured it out and she got the whole internet thing working out, of course, the numbers were not aligned for whatever happened with and she explained that. But the whole call became about how resilient are you? How do you
Mhm.
go into that place of just trusting that it's all going to work out? And it did, and it worked out better than I could have ever imagined. We wound up going like almost 2 hours and spending really great time together so that one of the people who's an OB was between delivering babies and she was able to get on. And it was like, it was like the miracles just kept flowing in. And that's when you just sit there and you go, I can't do anything about this. I'm going to let this come through and I trust in the universe and I'm going to let this flow. And it worked out so lovingly and so beautifully. And then everybody got their readings and everyone was happy rather than just going, I can't figure this out, and trying to
Right.
control it all.
That is
Yeah.
a key part of it. What I love about the ebook, you can get it at terricole.com/miracles, because I feel like this is a beautiful way to start 2023, right? Is to think
Yeah.
about what are you doing for yourself this year and how are you going to make these shifts to get out of your own way to allow your own abundance to flow. What you were saying, Lisa, I just want to say something quick about that. When things don't work out the way we expect, that the
Unforeseen
faith,
circumstances. Yeah.
so many, but the faith that you're talking about there, it's funny when you said it, you were talking and I noticed I had a visceral physical response of like, you were like, when you just are in acceptance or have faith. And here's the thing I say to my therapy clients: having faith that things will work out. A lot of times I can be in the head of like the universe has a better plan than you've got. Okay, fine. But if I can't get there, I can always be in the head of I have faith that it's all going to work out, that it's all going to be okay. And maybe I can't see exactly how it will be okay at this moment in time. But that doesn't mean control more. That doesn't mean micromanage more. That doesn't mean like double down on those sort of behaviors that are blocking our flow. It means allowing, and it means being in the unknown. And I think that this piece is, especially for high functioning women, is scary because we want to plan for all the things that could go wrong. And I remember, again, Deepak, all these Deepak references today, but I remember him saying years ago, and he still says it now, but it impacted me because I was like in my 20s at the time. So I was so like, oh my God, Deepak Chopra. And he was saying about it shifted my relationship to being in the unknown, where he was saying, listen, the unknown is where the infinite possibilities of your life exist. Everything is possible. Instead of fearing the unknown, let's open to the unknown. And again, it requires, there's a certain amount of emotional self-regulation that we need in order to be like, okay. And life experience has helped too, of course, because we've all done things and we have survived 100% of the experiences that we've had so far, right? Yes.
Oh, yeah, we wouldn't be here.
That is accurate.
Exactly.
So I just want to say thank you guys so much for coming, for spending time, for inspiring us, to giving people the book. You guys, you can get it at terricole.com/miracles. I'm super looking forward to coming back and being a guest in the Miracles group. If you guys are interested in that, all that information will be in the show notes as well. If you are looking for your own posse, if you are looking to have the support that we were talking about today, all the info is in the show notes. But just know, deep bow of gratitude to both of you for the work that you're doing in the world, because we so desperately need it. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Terri, I have to just say to you, thank you for doing the brilliant work that you are doing. And I know that everybody here that listens to you regularly is grateful to you, and we are as well.
Oh, thanks,
Absolutely.
Marci.
Absolutely. You are just brilliant for calling out and supporting high functioning women to have self care and boundaries. The work you are doing in the world is absolutely magnificent and insightful and needed. So thank you. Back
Oh,
at you,
thank
girl.
you,
Yep.
thank you, my friends.